I'm seeing videos everywhere online, people talking about why people are quitting the carnivore diet. I actually did a reel about this not long ago, and I had a whole bunch of people tell me I was crazy because no one's quitting the carnivore diet. And now suddenly here we are a few weeks later, and a whole bunch of people have released videos talking about people quitting the carnivore diet and wondering why. Today I'm going to tell you the top 5 reasons I think people are quitting the carnivore diet and why I'm really encouraging them to reconsider. Let's dive into it today on Chris Cookin' Nashville. Do you ever notice how some people thrive on carnivore? They seem to be the epitome of health. They are glowing. They feel amazing. All of their diseases are being reversed. They're losing weight. They look fantastic. And then all of these other people who are on social media, they're all on board with carnivore, they just vanish. They fall off, they disappear from the community, they say it didn't work for them, or even worse, they were shamed out of continuing. Today I'm going to break down the top 5 reasons I think people are quitting the carnivore diet. And while there are a lot of people who are getting on board, there are also a lot of the newbies, especially that I see on social media, that are leaving. I'm going to tell you guys right now, number 5 on this list might make you a bit uncomfortable, but I think it's important we talk about it. Let's dive in with reason number 1. Up first, number 1 is social pressure and isolation. The first reason is simple, but it's pretty brutal, and that is the social pressure of trying to do carnivore in a world that kind of doesn't understand it. You start eating meat only, and suddenly everyone in your life is an expert. Your parents are worried about cholesterol. Your friends all think you've joined a cult. Your doctor tells you that's not sustainable or healthy. Every dinner, every family meeting, every lunch at work, all of it puts extra pressure on you as the weird one. And unfortunately, every conversation about food can turn into a debate. You can handle being different for a while, but eventually it starts to wear on you and it catches up. Most people tend to just fold. And I totally get it. You want to fit in. Believe me, as someone who is neurodivergent and masked my entire life because of being undiagnosed, I know what it means to want to fit in and to try to figure out how to do that. But if you're watching this, remember, this lifestyle is something different. The goal isn't to blend in here. It is to stand out beautifully. Now, there's a lot of things you can do to solve social pressure and isolation, and one of those things is find an online community of people who understand what you're going through. I have a private community where we are extremely supportive called The Band. I'll link it in the description box, but you can find all kinds of great communities that will help you feel not so alone if you are choosing to be a carnivore for your better health. Reason number 2 is lack of guidance and misinformation. The second and perhaps most frustrating reason that I see people leaving carnivore is because of the lack of guidance or assistance and misinformation, which just compiles with that to make it so much worse. When people start carnivore, they run into a lot of different voices. Eat organs, don't eat organs. Add dairy, don't add dairy. Too much protein, not enough protein. Too much fat, not enough fat. Yes to seasonings, no to seasonings. Yes to recipes, no to recipes. Honestly, online, it's chaos. So when someone hits a stall or they're feeling off or they're just not sure of where to go, they don't really have one consistent place to turn. They don't know what's normal, and understandably, they probably panic. They think the diet failed them and somehow it doesn't work for them the way it's worked for everyone else that they've seen. But the problem is it's not the food, it's the framework they're building. If you've got someone who's been there, who's experienced this, who can say, maybe your electrolytes are off, or have you considered raising your fat intake, or perhaps that's a little bit too high protein for you, or maybe you're trying to OMAD fast a little bit too quickly in this journey. That's the stuff that helps you get through it. And without those kinds of relationships, it's pretty easy to quit. And this is why a lot of times the people I see quitting are not the OGs that have been doing this for months and months or even years. And there are some exceptions to that rule, and there are people who do change, but a majority of people that are consistent on carnivore, they've pushed through to figure out details for their own body. But a lot of times they don't tell people that. Be a guide and a support. Be the reason someone stays in this community and continues fighting for a better life utilizing things like keto and carnivore, rather than the reason that drives them away. Reason number 3, the adaptation funk. Number 3 is the adaptation period, which I'm calling the adaptation funk, and it can be, to say the least, a little funky for some people. You know the phase I'm talking about: the headaches, the fatigue, the dehydration, the muscle cramps, the weird gut issues, all of the stuff that makes you go, what is happening to my body? This can result in things like brain fog, really intense cravings, and all sorts of stuff that we have no skill set already developed to know how to handle. People hit this wall and they think, something is wrong with me. Carnivore must be a bad idea for my body. The truth is they're detoxing from things like years of bad eating, heavy carb hits, really high insulin, seed oils, toxins and chemicals and junk in their food that their body has to figure out how to change, not to mention things like the gut microbiome needing to adjust to the sudden uptick in the intake of protein and fat. But no one's telling them that. It's like getting out of a bad relationship. Sometimes you gotta feel worse before you can heal and feel better. Yeah! So if you're in that funk, hang on. Every magician knows the trick looks a little like chaos right before the reveal. Reason number 4, the monotony, the logistics, the Chris cooking Nashville universe of things that I do to help. Reason number 4 is nothing more than the real world grind. And let's be honest, eating steak and ground beef and eggs for some people can become extremely boring and monotonous. They can taste amazing one day, and by day 300, you don't want to see them at all. You start daydreaming about variety, wishing you could have something else. And the reality is, whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant. It's true for a lot of people. Whether they should or shouldn't be that way is not for me to decide. If I'm going to help people, I need to admit what they're actually struggling with, and I've got to figure out how to give them solutions. Because of their cravings, they start doing things like going out with family to a restaurant, having a little more cheese than maybe they should, tasting some extra veggies, using more seasonings, and then they start to experience sometimes some negative consequences. Things like the prices at the grocery store, travel, business trips, vacations, family outings, being in a restaurant, all of these things make a situation very difficult where they finally go, maybe I'm just going to give in to this one thing a little bit. And this is when guilt creeps in. I added cheese and I said I wouldn't. I had a little bit of a veggie. God forbid, I tasted a potato. Maybe I had a cheat meal. I'm so worthless. I'm terrible. This isn't how I should do this. I had coffee. Am I kicked out of the carnivore world? No, you're not kicked out. You're human. This idea that we present on social media as a community of you have to do all of this perfectly, and if you don't, it's a lack of discipline and a shortcoming in you as a human being, that's ridiculous. All we need to do is help you find solutions and support. Sustainability with something like carnivore is not about perfection. No one is perfect. And if someone's claiming they are and that they never struggle with anything, they're lying to you. It doesn't matter how great some strict version of carnivore is for you. If you can't stick with it, it's not going to do you any good anyway. And unfortunately, because of the pressure on social media, I think a lot of people try to go so strict, so fast, and they don't give themselves any grace or work their way into this. And finally, the monotony and the frustration and the logistical issues and being around their family compiles on all of these other reasons I've been giving you, and they just can't do it anymore. This is a real issue, and it's one that new people, especially to this community, need to be supported and encouraged through rather than beaten up and criticized for. And this is exactly why I make the recipes that I do, so if someone is really trying to do this and stick to it, they have some options, whether they want to include them regularly or just use them as a safety net and a fail-safe when all else feels like it's going to fall apart. Might not be for everybody, but it's an option for some, and I think it's one that I'm seeing a lot of new people struggle because they're so afraid to use. And a lot of that fear has to do with how they're going to be treated as a result of their lack of perfection. Which brings me to reason number 5. I think one of the biggest reasons, perhaps the biggest reason, and one that is aimed at this community itself. Reason number 5 is something I'm calling the 90-10 principle. This one is inspired by my love of magic from when I was growing up. There's this principle magicians talk about where when a magic trick is performed, if someone is fooled by 90% of the trick, but they see one little move and maybe 10% of that trick, they know how it's done, they discount it and they say, I know how it's done, I wasn't fooled, even though 90% they can't actually figure out what was being done. But a magician, someone who's on the other side, who respects the work of a fellow magician, who really understands the work that it takes to be successful performing a magic trick, they look at the exact same trick. And if they know how 90% of that trick is done, but there's one thing that the magician does, the little 10% that they can't explain, they will tell you that the trick fooled them. For them, it's like seeing the magic all over again. This idea is called respect for mastery, and it's something that a lot of very loud people in the community seem to have lost sight of. Someone will look at somebody using a seasoning on their steak or drinking coffee, and they nitpick and they go, that's not carnivore. And in doing so, they prove they don't understand the magic of what this lifestyle is about. Very small thinking is to focus on the 10% that's not perfect and use it to discount the work this other person is doing. But true leaders in this space who respect the idea that that 10% is what can make each person special and what can make their experience individualized and stable, they respect the 10%. And even though they're doing the work of the other 90%, the exact same, they don't nitpick the last 10% and use it to discount the work that's being done. And they see that you are on a journey and you are working towards better health one step at a time. These are the magicians that are looking at you doing the 90% that they fully understand, and they see your 10% that's a little bit different than theirs, and they respect that 10%, even if maybe they don't know exactly why you're doing it or how you're doing it, and even if they say, I don't think that's ideal, they find a respectful way to do it, and they present their own 10% as an idea, not a religious dogma. There are so many of you guys that I watch. All of you are doing amazing work, and I am trying my best to be a part of this group as well. If you're not doing the 90% of the work that all of these amazing influencers are doing, trying to help people, you have no business being out there nitpicking that little 10% for every new person who's entering the space as a way to elevate yourself to some status of master carnivore. That 10% that gets nitpicked is where the innovation lives. That's where new people find their entry point and their stability to make it one more day, one more week, one more month, one more year. That is where real growth happens for people who are just trying to figure out how to change their lives the same way you and I did. We lose more people to gatekeeping than anything else, I think, in this space. We definitely lose more people to gatekeeping than we ever have to carbohydrates. Now, if you've ever been made to feel like you aren't pure enough or perfect enough or good enough at carnivore, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Don't quit. Do the 90% that is going to change your life, and let your 10% evolve as you go and as you learn and as you become more stable and as you heal. The goal here is not perfection. It's progress and growth and healing and stability. That's the real magic. And when we combine our efforts, we can reach the millions and millions of people who need our help. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me, my ego, my mastery of the last 10% being held up as an example. It's about how many people who need this message can we reach and encourage and save. If this video hits home for you, I want you to drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about this. Are you one of those people who has quit carnivore? And if so, why did you quit carnivore? If you're one of those people who says, I'm never quitting carnivore, tell us about your success and why this has changed your life so much. Leave a comment down below. It is time for us to build a space where you can feel supported, encouraged, and welcomed at all times. Now, I've created a community that can help you with things like this. So if you're looking for a place to be encouraged, be supported, not feel so much of that isolation, not feel like you're going to get ripped apart if you don't do everything perfectly, with a group of people who understands the 90% you're doing and the 10% that you're still working on just like the rest of us, come join us at the link in the description box and be a band member, because I would love to support you in the journey, as would all of my fellow band members. We would love to have you guys there. Just remember that 10% that you could be technically nitpicking, that's where the magic lives. Guys, this is Chris from Chris Cook in Nashville. Remember to eat your meat, love your life, and support everyone so that we don't lose the world to our own weird isolation issues and the infighting of the community. I'll see you guys in the next one, and let's go build something special and save a lot of lives.